This is PENSDOWN. Here, the pen, which is the most important tool of the journalist, is put down because the journalist is no longer the reporter or the presenter on this platform. He or she is the newsmaker. That is how we turn the tables on this platform and get journalists to tell us all that they go through. There are a lot of things they grapple with in the line of duty, but we never get to hear them. That is why PENSDOWN is here. The sole aim and the sole menu on this program is journalism journeys. Today, I've been joined by a senior colleague. He's a multimedia journalist with professional experience spanning 20 years across 2 countries. From Peace FM as an intern to the evening newspaper as a reporter and the Heritage newspaper, where he rose to become sports editor. He has made his writing skills count in the profession. After that, he joined VAS at One Television as news producer for 2 years before leaving for South Africa. In South Africa, when he landed in 2014, he picked camp with the Sports Eagle as an online writer the following year. He later went into public relations, but never abandoned the writer in him. At Tony Elephant Media, he worked as content writer, mainly producing scripts for various purposes. He occupies a similar position at his recent job, at his current job at the Bigger Picture PR agency, also in South Africa, where he regularly scripts and produces content for TV, news articles, features, and interviews, among others. Felix Kwame Gyasi has joined me today from his base in South Africa. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for having me on the show.
Right. You know, in Ghana here, if you were still a news producer, it would have been difficult to get you on PENSDOWN like this at a time like this. When
Absolutely.
you are preparing
Absolutely.
for 7 p.m. news and the rest.
Absolutely, I can relate to that because
Yes.
when I was at VASAT, I think this was the pressure moment because our live television news was at 7 o'clock. So we had to be in studio by 7. And sometimes you discover that your major story or your most important story was not ready for the bulletin.
Wow.
And you had to rush up and down to make sure your newscasters are on set. Your newscasters have gone through the script because not because it was our doing, but the researcher or the writer or the reporter of the story did not make it in time to the office to rewrite or to write the story or to file the story. So eventually we had to bank our hopes on that particular story because it was a leader of all the stories. So going on air without that particular story, you find your TriCaster operator shouting at you because it's part of the rundown and they need to prepare the video and the video was not ready. So it's complete chaos. And this is the time that you don't have to, there's no break at all. You're preparing a major bulletin, so you can expect that.
That's right. One news editor of a television station I hosted here said sometimes when things get hot like that, you even fall on staircases and the rest, and all because you want to beat the time, you want to get a thing done.
You bet, because there have been times that a script is missing out of the pile of scripts that we have for the newscasters. And it is not because we didn't do it right, but because somebody forgot it on the spur of the moment. Okay. When there's chaos in the newsroom, you bet anything can go wrong. But hey, we got it all sorted. It's part of the job. Sometimes you go through that just so that you can man up and then bring the quality out in you. You know what I mean?
But I'm wondering, there is teaching, there is accountancy, there is banking, there is every other thing. Why did you opt for journalism?
Wow, I was expecting this question because I've watched a couple of your previous shows. Journalism has been a passion. It has been a passion. I used to write for way back I used to write for the Playpen magazine, which came up, I think, in 1994. You know, where you chronicle articles from high school students or lower, or JHS as it's called now. You collate all those articles and publish them, you know, in that magazine, that circulates throughout Ghana. So the passion was there. I always wanted to write. I love to read. I love to write. My stepfather was a lecturer, and we had a corpus list of books in our shelves. And you would love to take a novel and read. You'd love to be associated with, you know, the fine statements that you come up with, the fine sentences that you come up with in all these novels that you read. And that was where I discovered my favorite writer as Evan Wallace, who I really love so much. His style of writing is the kind of writing that I've been used to, you know, since I broke into the profession several years ago. I mean, it's almost 2 decades now since I've been writing. I have never regretted, you know, I was always told to read, but I did not understand the reason for the, you know, that pressure to read. I used to, you know, back in the days when you were in lower school, you were in grade 6, grade 7, that passion, it took something extra to be able to cultivate the habit of reading. But for me, it was a must, because I was not the type that was allowed to watch the news at 7. My instruction was, after eating, after everything, take your books, read. There are books in the shelf, pick one of them, go to your room and read. So it was, I felt that I was being deprived of other things, but eventually it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. You know what I mean?
There is a lot of attrition in the field of journalism in Ghana today. A lot of qualified professionals are leaving, moving into public relations and the rest.
That's right.
Would you yourself say journalism has lost you, or because you are still writing, you are still a journalist?
I have not lost touch with journalism, irrespective of the fact that I'm not in mainstream newsroom. That newsroom environment is not there, does not mean that I have lost touch with it. Now, why I really cannot pinpoint the fact, the exodus of journalists moving into the field of public relations, but I feel that it's a number of factors that has, you know, given way to this exodus. First, I want to talk about the financial aspect of the things. Remuneration possibly could be a factor, because journalism itself is not the type that will want to give you millions at the end of the month. People might have somehow gotten into a field where they are okay, they are comfortable with what they get at the end of the month. I mean, looking at the Ghana that I left way back in 2007, I feel that a lot has got to change. What was persistent then is still persistent even now. That I have colleagues that have told me they want out of the profession, they want out of the system, because the vision that they have, the objective that they had, was that this was going to be something, as part of their passion, it was going to be more rewarding as well. But they discovered that that part of it, that part of this whole thing of journalism was not forthcoming. So that explains why some have jumped ship. And I think that they being in the field of public relations does not necessarily mean that they have lost touch or they have lost the elements of journalism. And for instance, here with the bigger picture, I do a lot of scripting and directing, because I know what I want, and you need to know what your populace, or you need to know what your target want in order to convince them of any development concerning any particular issue. So that alone tells you that you need that, professional instinct in order to convince them as to what your position is on a particular subject. So I would not say that I have lost touch, because I still do some jobs of journalism on the side, apart from what I'm used to. Because as they say, once a journalist is always a journalist.
What assignment stands out for you as the most challenging these 20 years you've practiced?
Wow, there's a lot of it, but I think I will single out in 2005. I when news broke that the former president of Togo, Gyasi had passed on. My editor sent me to Togo to look at the situation, how the situation had turned, the reaction of Ghanaians. I was then working with the Heritage newspaper at the time. And I got into Togo, and it was I could feel there was a sense of the atmosphere was a bit pregnant with disaster waiting to happen. Okay. Now I got on the back of a motorbike, busy taking pictures with my camera, and here I was passing right in front of the residence of the late president. And then we got stopped by the gendarmerie. And of course they were carrying guns, and the atmosphere, I could see people rushing helter skelter, because there was a sense of uneasiness in Lomé at the time. So I was asked to come off the bike. Who am I? Why am I taking pictures? And all of that. I produced my ID. Fortunately, I could speak some French. I came off the bike. They took my camera. They held me hostage for some time because they did not understand who gave me permission to be taking photographs. Okay, and they seized the camera. I had to plead with them. Spoke to them for some time. They would not allow. I mean, we're talking French here, and you know how they behave sometimes. But hey, I got through a process, and this was something I never told my news editor about until today that I'm telling, because he expected so much from me. He was thinking that I'll be filing the first report by 6 o'clock so that go to press with it. But as at the time, there was nothing, and mobile phones and text messaging was not popular at the time. So I had to go to an internet cafe to send a story to say that, okay, this is what is happening. My camera has been seized. And the first reaction I got from my editor was, what are you telling me? This camera is expensive. Now, tell you what, these guys, the only thing they could do was to ask me to delete every single picture that I had taken. And these were pictures that I had promised my editor I was going to be the first thing to be sending. And I was excited by the situation, but I realized that no, there was animosity somehow. Okay, there was some kind of I don't know, but it was some sort of hatred against journalists who were there, because the same situation happened to this guy from Reuters. Yes, they dealt with him. They dealt with him nicely. And he didn't like the situation. So he said that he was going to leave Togo as soon as possible because it was not, very good atmosphere for him to be able to get the right pictures and do the job the way he wanted to do it. So eventually, I was giving back my camera after about 6 hours. And I had to delete, everything was deleted. And I was told, do not take pictures. We'll be monitoring what you do. So I had to go to an internet cafe in à l'Hôtel de Février, and then go to the internet cafe, sit down and type a story to my editor and say that, okay, this is a story, but then I'm not able to send pictures because of this that happened. So Eventually, I came out of the internet cafe. I was shaking because I knew that, you know what, this is not my country in the first place. Anything can happen.
That's right.
The atmosphere is pregnant. Anything could happen at any time. People were actually people running for life.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I mean, I don't see it as, why would there be so much pandemonium when the president is passed on? I was trying to figure out the reasons. Okay, so what I went through that particular day, I feel that it is something I never ever wanted to encounter again in my journey in journalism, in reporting, and all of that. Okay, so another situation that happened was at the African Union Summit in 2007 in Accra.
Okay.
I was privileged to be one of the reporters that were there, and we were interviewing one of the late Gaddafi's men came and said that if you did not speak French, you shouldn't enter this place, because they had all the French media ready to interview him. So I was privileged to enter because I could speak French. Now, what happened was, in the course of that, I found this guy standing right in front of me, because they said we only had 5 minutes to ask questions. If you were, a journalist, you had 5 questions, and after 5 questions, you go out. And it was a very important African Union conference, because it was the year that they were trying to, they had come up with the idea of a one Africa with a one common leader, okay? And the protagonists were Mugabe from the late Mugabe,
Zimbabwe,
and then Gaddafi from Libya.
So
the debate was which of them should become. And then it hit a rock. Deliberations hit a rock. Some proponents decided that no, we don't need that. We had Thabo Mbeki, we had all the presidents that were there mooting for one particular protagonist. So eventually, what for me stood out was the fact that there was some scuffle that took place, and I happened to have seen it, and I was not particularly impressed with how security was. Anything could have happened in that instance, because I saw bodyguards of some presidents reaching out for their pistols in their holster. And in the midst of that, I was a bit taken aback, and I'm thinking, is this really going to happen here? Like, are you guys really serious? Okay, because one group of bodyguards were unimpressed with what the other did. I think 2 presidents from different countries, I'm not going to mention their names, and their bodyguards got involved in some sort of scuffle. Okay, and this was a place where people were gathered, and you are thinking of reaching out for your gun, pistol on the holster, and I was standing right there, and I'm thinking, okay, what's going to happen? I mean, if something were to happen, So for me, I felt that, look, this is a job that you need to expect such things. You need to really be prepared, because I remember that when we were in the first year, we were sent out to some crazy places that you didn't really want to know, all in the name of toughening us for the job ahead, all in the name of strengthening our persona for stuff like that. So for me, it was as a result of all the trainings that we went through at the Institute in order to get to the level at which we were in the course of our journey.
Right. Were you at any point, or have you at any point as a journalist been approached with anything monetary or material? Then they tell you this story you are doing, drop it or compromise the facts, and this is for you. How many times were you approached?
I was approached several.
Oh.
To the extent people calling me at midnight, just because they wanted an agenda to be pursued. They wanted an agenda to be out there. And you know what? there was, I mean, let me take you through some of the episodes. When I used to write for The Heritage,
Okay.
there was somebody who called and they specifically wanted to speak to me because I was doing a couple of investigative as well,
Okay.
as I went ahead. So this person specifically looked for me and then told me what had happened. Now, I decided that, okay, let me double check. Let me speak to the other party. Of course, I mean, if you're a professional, you do what you have to do professionally. You don't listen to one side of the story. So I called up the supposed CEO. It was a company that had not paid its workers, and the CEO was living a lavish life with people elsewhere.
Okay.
So I called this person up and told him what I had heard. And as a professional, I needed to verify before I go to press with it. And he sounded upset. Okay, he sounded upset how I got the story and who told me. And I said I was under no obligation to tell you the source of my story.
Yeah.
He dropped the call. And I tried to reach him back. He shouted at me, and then dropped the call again. I said, okay, now you leave me with no choice. Then I think after about 10 minutes, he calls back and he says, where are your offices? We used to be by Unibank in Kokombimli.
Okay.
And then I told him around Kokombimli, the Royal Castle Road. He said, can I see you personally? I'm like, why do you want to see me? No, we need to talk. We need to talk because, people come to lie about us, it's not. So eventually what he was proposing was an amount of money.
Okay.
And I felt that this person who called me was a victim of this man's, extravagant life, carelessness, heartlessness. So I felt that, no, you know what? As a person, if I were to put myself in this person's shoes, how would I feel? As opposed to collecting a black plastic bag from somebody I don't even know.
Yeah.
I declined. He kept calling me. I declined. He kept calling me. I gave the story to my editor. I said, I'm done. We published the story. The next day, he was called on radio. He decided to sugarcoat and say that, he gave varied reasons as to why things happened the way they did. The other one that happened, it was somebody that is in high position today in Ghana. And there was an issue of drug and his name happened to have come up. And
okay.
I went to interview him in his house and he felt this was going to damage his reputation. Entered his bedroom, started counting. I could feel it. I could hear that this was where it was going. Started counting wads of 20,000 notes. And to be honest, that day I was broke. There was no way I was going to say no. You know what? He came up, he says, Felix, use this for transport. I was like, no, I can't do that. He says, no, even your seniors, when they come here and I give them, they take. Why don't you want to take? I said, I was not trained like that. I spoke to him and I really touched him. And he felt embarrassed by that action. He felt embarrassed that, you came all the way to my house and I'm offering you something you don't want to accept. So from then on, he gained my respect. So subsequently, anytime I could call him up, he was ready to answer. He was ready to speak to me concerning any issues of crime in the country. So for me, that was what won me over him. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of instances that we might not, it is something that has to happen because you know what? This is a profession you have chosen. It makes people or unmake people, depends on how you look at it. Okay? I feel that we have abused the system. We have gone to the extent where we are ready to accept as opposed to looking at the professional side of things. Yes, somebody might come up and say that profession does not put food on my table. I understand that. But how long are you going to do that? In South Africa, it is a no-no. It does not happen in South Africa. You cannot do that in South Africa. You cannot do that. You don't bribe a journalist. You don't even attempt to bribe a journalist. A journalist has no business accepting money from somebody to do a story. It doesn't happen like that. this issue of Soli and whatnot does not happen.
Wow. If we are to roll back the hands of time, 25 years, are you still going to choose journalism?
I would choose journalism any day. I would choose it any day, anytime, anywhere, because the passion is inborn. One of the reasons I chose journalism was the fact that my brother was a footballer, okay? And he had gone through a very bad patch with football administrators in Ghana.
Okay.
And I felt that these were some of the things I had to do to expose the rot in the system. He was supposed to be a member of the Starlets 95 team, 97 actually, 97 team, but was dropped at the last minute. Okay? I felt this was unfair. This was somebody who had qualified, who had gone through the practices or who had gone through the justifiers and was genuinely qualified to represent the country. But because somebody had to accept money from somewhere, he was dropped eventually. So for me, that was the pain and hurt that I had in me, and decided that, you know what, I'm going to do this job. I'm going to make sure that all these people are exposed. I'm going to make sure that whoever is taking these things and frustrating the careers and the lives of other people, you have no idea what he went through. This was the day he swore that he was never going to play for Ghana again. But he chose Italy over Ghana. So it's a combination of factors that, for me, it was a matter of choice to say that, you know what, I have been there. I have been somebody who has loved to read and write. So why wouldn't I champion this cause of fighting these people in the system? So these were the factors that led me to, and in any day, journalism, as we say in our local parlance, the pen is better than the sword. Yeah. I will choose the pen over the sword anytime, any day. The pen speaks louder than the sword. So I will choose that, and I'm not ashamed. I don't regret my actions.
Does journalism pay?
Well, as I said before, journalism, it depends on how and where you are practicing. Because look, we have mushrooming media outlets in Ghana. Yes. Okay. I speak to a couple of our colleagues. They give me a clear picture of what is happening in the system. And I feel that, look, it's better you look elsewhere where you can be comfortable in terms of remuneration, because most people are leaving because of how the financial reward looks like on paper. It does not look too well. There's so many things happening. You know the situation in Ghana right now. There's so many things happening, and if you don't have what it takes to mitigate the system, it means that you're always going to be from hand to mouth. And I don't feel that. Look, in other places, let me just use South Africa as an example, because I've been here for the past 13 years. I know the system so well, and I'll tell you that a journalist in South Africa is way ahead than a journalist in Ghana. I'm telling you this on authority, because I have been in the system for, like I said, for some time, and I know the nook and cranny of journalism in this country. So it is not easy. And as I told you off air before, for instance, if you want to do journalism in South Africa, you don't just slot into the system or fit into it at a go. You need to be recognized. You'd have to have some sort of accreditation in order to practice. You don't just get up, get on a plane, next minute you're here in Johannesburg, you wanna do journalism. It doesn't work like that, unless in exceptional circumstances. I can guarantee that you have to go through with the system. The system does not allow the foreign police to just dominate or enter. It needs you to go through some sort of instances before you are qualified to. Okay. The ombudsman in South Africa, just like the GJA, does not allow certain individual elements to enter into the profession and begin to practice not knowing what they're doing. But God being so good, we went into it, we saw how it was done, we practiced, and I must say that there is some sort of leverage to say that, look, if you want to practice, journalism, it has to start from somewhere before you can break into the system in South Africa. So I feel that journalism, it depends on where you are doing it. Just like in one of your episodes, Amaka was saying that you have to practice. She is comfortable because of what she's doing and where she's doing. In the same way, somebody can say the same thing, but I don't think that most people can say that when they are doing that in Ghana, because we have over 100 radio stations in Ghana. We have only in Accra, only in Accra. We have so many newspapers all over the place. We have social media here and there. So it makes it a bit difficult for the professionals to break through in terms of remuneration.
How has social media changed the face of journalism?
Well, it has in both ways, the good side and the bad side. To begin with the bad side, let me take you through this. Now, social media has come to a point where everybody becomes a journalist. Every blogger thinks that they have what it takes to become journalists overnight. Okay? They do not know what we went through in terms of the acquisition of knowledge, which they don't have. Just because they had a gossip, it becomes for them the breaking story. And they say it on authority as if it is true, without knowing the effect or the impact of what they are doing. It is ruining so many things. It is affecting journalism as a whole. And I think that there has to be some sort of, checks and balances from authorities there before anything happens, because it is not good enough. The way people have been allowed to go on this, use social media as a way to champion their own personal vendettas and their own personal causes, I don't think that it's what we were taught. We were not taught that kind of thing. Yes, back in the days, we didn't have social media working at the rate at which it is working now. But I feel that this should be an opportunity where we can gain so much from, as opposed to, eroding all the gains we have made in the past. Okay. Now I even have a funny feeling now. Anybody that says something, they will say, you journalists, you go on social media and you say 1, 2, 3, 4. Meanwhile, we are not the ones.
Yes.
Okay. The good side of it is the fact that news is everywhere. It gets on social media, it gets on Twitter, it gets on Instagram, it gets on Facebook. News is everywhere for us to know what is happening around us. Okay. It even gives people, news ideas as to what they can do or to look out for. Because I believe that back in the days when we were at the evening news in 2004, we did not have these things. When we were growing into the profession, we didn't have these things of solicitous assignments, because as a senior person, you needed to do something, an interview of a sort. So you needed to go, sit down, take the old newspapers, go through. What is it that you can get from there? You read over, try to get news stories, news items, where you can put 2 and 2 together and say, I want to go and interview this person based on that. But now, like I'm saying, when you are able to get on social media, you will discover that there are news ideas that you can get on. There are news ideas you can run with and say, this sounds interesting. Okay, so based on that, I think the good side should outweigh the negative aspect of social media, because I feel that when we are allowing things to go the way they are going, it is not good enough. I've been reading stories, I've been watching news from there, and I think that there's so much that needs to be done in order to create a fine balance between those who are professionals and those who are not, because it looks like those without the skill, professional skill, are the loudest. So yeah, because a newspaper, I don't even think a newspaper's page can have close to 200,000 followers, but yet a blogger has over 300,000 followers.
Some
what are
have
they blogging
millions.
about? Yes, what are they blogging about? They take the stories that we do, and then they go ahead and do their own thing. Exaggerate, blow it out of proportion. At the end of the day, they are also included as journalists when they're not. So let us look at, that level of the fine balance to say that, these people must be decoupled from however they see them. I don't want them to be associated with a group of journalists that are finely trained and experienced. You know what I mean? Yeah, so personally.
Is journalism an attractive profession in South Africa?
It is very attractive. It is very attractive. It is not the type that you want to go in and think that you're going to look for something else better elsewhere. Okay? Colleagues, friends that I have, they are all okay. Those I left in the field that are still on the field, they're fine, they're good, they're doing okay. And personally, like I said, I've been there, I've done that, I know what it is. So for somebody to think that journalism is the same everywhere, it's untrue, because I know what it looks like on this side of the continent. For instance, like I said, we don't have this thing of Sole here. So a journalist is well paid because they know the dangers when it comes to this profession. They know the dangers, they know the attraction that it comes with, so that a journalist is not attracted to go and just file any story. Because there was a time, for instance, in Ghana that I did a story and I regretted. I did a story and I regretted because I did not take it further. I wrote a story about the late former president, Jerry Rawlings, his brother, actually, and he was used as the bait for that particular story in the newspaper. So the newspaper sold, and he happened to have seen the story. And then Jerry Rawlings calls the office. He says he wants the author of this story. I come up on the story, I come up on the phone, and he says, "Are you the owner of it?" And I'm thinking, oh, okay, I know this voice. I know this voice. He says, "So you wrote the story using my name and using my picture?" I was like, "No, sir. I used your brother's name because your brother." He says, "But that is not my brother's picture on your newspaper." He says, "You are very lucky. Very lucky he's not in the era of the PNDC." I felt like dropping the phone. I felt like dropping the phone. My news editor at the time I happened to have worked with some of the seasoned, well-respected and seasoned journalists of our time, the likes of the late Edward Fache at Peace FM. So much respect to the man. The man taught me so much. I really appreciate whatever he did for me. I worked with AC Ohini. AC Ohini was such a gem, has been such a gem in the profession, who has been underutilized in that particular field, because he's a library of knowledge. He's a library of talent when it comes to jail. So these two people were the people that catapulted me so far in the profession. To be honest, I never knew that the word Arkansas was what people used to say Arkansas. I never knew. It was Edward Fache who taught me. So these were people that were on hand to give us the experience, to give us their know-how, to teach us, So for me personally, I feel that the way we have taken the profession from to this level, I think there's a lot we need to do. There's a lot we need to do. We must have all systems working. We must have our parent body, the GJ, working at full length to ensure that we have that reputation growing again. Because what I see and what I listen to be honest, it's a bit of a low, below par stuff that I'm witnessing. Not to forget that I also work with good old Kwame, of the Africa Sports fame,
Yeah,
And
he's currently the president of SWAG, Sports
of
Writers
swag, yes,
Association of
yes,
Ghana.
yes, yes, yes. You know, these guys taught me so much. I remember Kopna telling me that, you know what, don't write big English in your report. And I'm thinking, you write, and I need a dictionary to find out what you're writing about. And yet you're telling me not to write, you know, because I wanted to write like him. But he advised me that when you are communicating, it is not everybody that understands what you're writing. So write in simple, plain language for everybody to understand what you're writing or what you're communicating, you know, because he had a particular target he was looking at. So all these people, they helped shape me into the person I am today, and I'm forever grateful to these people.
Right. How many more years are you willing to take journalism before you bow out of the profession?
The level of passion and excitement that I have for journalism is endless. I would say that I will not give a definite number of years, but the practice still goes on. I'm not going to stop anytime soon. I have a lot of stuff that I'm doing, and they all have elements of journalism, which of course I'm not going to stop anytime soon, as I said. There are companies that contract me to write script for a TV commercial for them. And personally, I have absolutely no issues with that, because the fact that I work for this particular company does not make that I cannot do something on the side. So I feel that with regard to television, I love television so much. I have been in television for 3-4 years, and I have fallen so much in love with television that I'm not prepared anytime soon to let go. It's something that, as I said, is inborn, and I want to see it to the last of my breath.
Right. Was there a point that your job put your life in danger?
Yes, at a point it did. It did. I'll give you a scenario. There was a time I wrote a story and I did not verify from the other source. That was lesson one learned. I trusted this person and who gave me the story. And this person happened to have had a personal vendetta with the other person I was supposed to speak to. So he called me up and said, "Felix, did you hear what happened?" I'm like, "No." It's like, these are people you know. These are people you know. Some were ministers before, you know, they are not in ministry anymore. Some were top-notch people in political parties that you might know. So he calls me up. The former minister calls me up and says, "Felix, did you hear what happened?" I said, "What happened? Where?" There were gunshots and people were running, and this man was even running. And I'm thinking, okay, I didn't hear that. He didn't tell me anything. So in my haste, without cross-checking, and like I said, these were lessons learned, I went to write a story, and I didn't verify from this person. My editor, of course, was excited because this, for them, this is the story they want. You know, gunshots fired, and this person runs amok, and you know. And the story came out. It came out in the morning. It was on Peace FM. They called up this person. He says, "It never happened." Now, this person calls me angrily. "Felix, I'm so disappointed. You of all people, you do this to me." I didn't know what to say. Not knowing that already people from his camp were looking out for me. They were looking out for me. They had come, somebody had to call me that, you know what, do not come to work, because these guys, apparently they came because of the newspaper article, the story that was written on the front page, and they are upset. They are very upset. So because of that, I decided that, you know what, I called my editor and said, "Mr. Ohini, I don't think I'll make it to work because I am told that this is what is happening at the office." So he said, okay, he will go and see to it. Apparently, when he went there, they had left, but then they had left a message that we're going to come back. So I thought that this was just like one of those, but it appeared that it was like a consistent thing. My life was really in danger. I didn't know what to do because if they knew where I stayed, it was going to be something else. So for me, it was a lesson learned, and I learned it the very hard way, because you don't listen to one side of a story. Even if it was difficult, make sure you get the other side of the story. And this person had that vendetta with this person I'm talking about. So there was a way he wanted to tarnish the image of this person. And he had to use me as a pawn, and he succeeded. You know, so it's something that we need to, and that is why I'm saying that present day newspaper bloggers will not do that. But for us as professionals, this is something that we have always been accustomed to. Yes, there were blips here and there, but eventually we learned the hard way, and it has been so beneficial to some of us.
My final question. Would you encourage maybe your child or your relative or a mentee to take to journalism?
I would do so. I want to do that because, and quite fortunately, two of them, they have taken to writing, very good writers. As to whether they will pursue it is another thing, because, you know, back in the days when you were growing up, you were told that you were going to be a bank manager, but you ended up being something else. You know, that pressure from parents.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put that pressure. If it happens naturally, if somebody thinks that I want to do this, I want to follow my father's footsteps, why not? I won't hesitate in telling them about the goodness of being in journalism. Somebody who has tasted the print, the electronic, and you know, online, I know the ins and outs of this job, and I will not hesitate in saying that, you know what, go for it.
Right. This has been PENSDOWN, and today we've traveled all the way down south to South Africa. My senior colleague, Felix, Kwame Gyasi, has joined me, and he's taking us through his journalism journey. Some of the things he went through, the challenging moments and the key lessons he learned. Very final question. What represents your golden memories in journalism?
Well, you know, this is a profession that has spanned over close to 20 years. And I would say that I have a lot of memories. I think what is fresh in my memory is meeting former President Kuffour, meeting former President Jerry Rawlings. These were stalwarts in our political history, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
And I feel that in their meetings, in my meeting with them, I learned so many things that shaped my perception about things. For me to have come up, you know, within their space, within their circle, was one of what I would call an achievement that I will never forget. Also, looking at the fact that I wouldn't want to say this, but yeah, I mean, for the sake of it, let me just leave it for now. Some of the things that happened were a bit private, so I'll leave it out for now. But I think these two stars that I met in my field of work, I might have traveled to several countries in my course of the practice, but I think I will want to, you know, reconcile myself to the fact that the two people I met in my journey in journalism shaped me up so much because they gave me a perception that I never expected. You know, Jerry Rawlings spoke obviously about his school in 1981, and for me, he provided reasons, whichever way you look at it. When I met John Kuffour, he spoke about what his vision was for the country, you know, which I thought was a fine thing, that could not see the end of the implementation of the projects that he had lined up in his vision in totality. But I think that these two presidents, or two former presidents, have shaped my thinking, have shaped my thoughts, and I'm very glad that I met them in the course of my journalism practice for the past 17, 18 years.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Stephen, and thanks for having me on your show. We'll do this more often. I'm excited by this, and I hope that we'll do that some other time.
Okay. This has been PENSDOWN. Here we talk journalism journeys. All the behind the scenes issues you don't get to hear, but journalists grapple with. That is what we bring on the table for you to get. We'll be back another time with another colleague to talk their own journalism journey. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.